30,000 dead, mostly women, children, and the elderly. Over 80,000 injured, mostly women, children, and the elderly.
Yes.
You got 1.8 million people, 3/4 of the population displaced.
I know a lot of people have been like, well, what's Bernie supposed to do at the end of the day? He's working within the Biden administration. He's trying to do his best in order to bring attention to some of these issues. There's no way to speak about this without also condemning the United States and their complicity. It's all been made possible thanks to the never-ending supply of weaponry that the United States is shipping over to Israel while they're committing a genocide. Let's check this out. Quite excited. Big fan of Hasan Minhaj. Less of a fan of Bernie Sanders these days, but maybe there's some good things here.
You have been ahead of the curve on so many of these issues for so long. Increasing the minimum wage, free tuition, LGBTQ rights. You have been talking about universal health care since Star Wars A New Hope was in theaters in 1978. Essentially, what you've been doing for the past 40 years is just doing what I do with my kids. Put on your shoes. Hey, just put your shoes on. Stop. Put your shoes on. Put your shoes on. Please, for the love of God, put your shoes on.
The health care is a right of all of its people.
That health care is a right of all people. Health care is a right of all people. Health care is a right of all people. Health care is a right of all people.
You've been saying put your shoes on for the past 40 years. Senator Sanders, do you ever feel like blowing your brains out?
Occasionally.
Because my daughter is in the first grade. She hasn't even gotten to the first grade. And
Sounds like you feel like blowing your brains out.
Daily, Senator Sanders.
Oh, don't do it. It's not the solution to the problem. Look.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Bernie Sanders. Yeah.
There's almost as many people in the room here as there were last night.
Senator Sanders, do you need a little?
Jane, how's my hair?
Jane?
Oh, you're on?
How's
yes. Yes, fine.
All right.
That's fine.
You know there's a barbershop over there we can get you. No, we can get you. I'm not kidding. This is true love. This is real love. Mrs. Sanders, this is real love. Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I want to start by exposing a secret about you. I know this is going to be a little intense, but it's going to shock the conscience of the American public. Senator Sanders, how tall are you?
6 feet. Television makes you short and fat. And for some reason,
I did not know that. That actually did shock me. What? He's a tall man. I did not think Bernie Sanders was a tall dude.
How I sit, I look fatter than I am. I'm not that fat, folks.
You're not
but
fat.
I am 6 feet.
I'm not fat shaming you. But there is this notion that you're a short king, but you were a tall comrade.
Now that we've gotten through the important stuff.
All right.
Tall comrades. I'm going to go with that for now on. I like that.
Let's get to the real stuff.
Yeah.
As someone who has covered the DNC for a long time, I've been there. It's felt electric in a way that I haven't felt in a long time. But I'm also seeing Democratic Party leadership and solidarity like I've never seen before. There's no sneak dissing, there's no disorder, there's no infighting. Progressives and neoliberals arm in arm. Senator Sanders, we had yourself, AOC, and JB Pritzker, a billionaire, all on stage together. So my question to you is, are we witnessing the rise of a more unified Democratic Party, or is this a Donald J. Trump is an existential threat one-off?
Well, it depends. I don't know that we know the answer to that. What I think we do know, which is clear, is that Donald Trump is the most dangerous candidate in perhaps the history of this country. And it's not only because of his terrible positions on all of the issues that I'm sure your listeners and viewers are familiar with. He is an authoritarian personality and will move this country in an authoritarian direction, the likes of which, I think it's hard to appreciate. So he's extremely dangerous. And I think what that reality has done is brought a whole lot of people to say, hey, you know what? We got to defeat this guy. We have to elect Kamala and Tim to the administration, and we go from there.
Are progressives and liberals, in your opinion, because of this existential threat, finally learning how to work together? Because
it's a complicated question. I think what you have, and it's the idea of coalition politics is something that we're not familiar with in the United States. It exists in Europe all over the place. Mm-hmm. It did recently in France, as you may be familiar with.
Right.
There was a threat of a right-wing movement, Le Pen, similar to Trumpism, and the left, including moderates and center-left and further left people, came together and said, we can't allow this to happen in France. So right now we are united in an honest way to defeat Donald Trump, but do not minimize the differences that exist between progressives and corporate Democrats.
In your
I hate that. I don't think it's in any way comparable. The alliance in France is an alliance of left-wing factions, and we're talking all the different groups from commies to anarcho-syndicalists, even social democrats, right? The problem with the Democratic Party, again, I think the best pathway forward is that the cult of MAGA is just relegated to the history books insofar as like Republicans stop being relevant. They've gone too far right, just going full on fascistic, and the Democratic Party can split into the two-party ticket. You can have the neoliberals, and they can represent the Republicans on one end, and then you can have the progressives and the leftists who represent humanity on the other.
speech at the convention, you said that you wanted a ceasefire in Gaza.
We must end this horrific war in Gaza, bring home the hostages, and demand an immediate ceasefire.
Yeah, and that's also true, right? It kind of plays into, if you're using France as an example, there's a really good example of like the neoliberals not wanting the left to come to power. Like right now, the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, has to name a prime minister in the country, and the people and the group is the left-wing coalition that has the most seats. They, by default, should be the ones that are elected. Because of this loophole in the French constitution, he can delay this as long as he wants, which he's doing right now, and he's doing it under the auspices of, if I do this, then this will prevent them from forming a government that will surely be shut down. And fair enough, it could be. There could be a vote of no confidence. They could get shut down in a parliamentary system, but you should still, in good faith, be nominating a prime minister from the winning voting bloc. It goes back to...
Don't trust the liberals. They will betray you.
Huge applause break moment in the United Center. It was pretty amazing. Everyone cheered. It really was a moment. But I want to talk about that word ceasefire. It means something very different for different people. The meaning of that word seems...
He's withholding his party's support for a left-wing prime minister. Yeah, they've nominated one, though. They've presented who they feel would be an appropriate prime minister pick, and I think she checks off all the boxes. I think at this point there's not really anything you can do outside of just continuously trying to delay it, and I apologize to Hasan for this terrible fucking freeze frame. Although, I gotta be honest, it's gotta be added to the collection. It's too gnarly. Too gnarly to ignore. There we go.
seems to be changing in real time. Senator Sanders, what is your definition of the word ceasefire?
If you allow me, let me back it up a little bit,
Sure,
and I'll
please.
get there. Okay.
And it's just walking us through.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go through with what happened. On October 7th, Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, invaded Israel and killed 1,200 innocent men, women, and children, took 200 hostages. They are a terrorist organization. Bad news, guys.
2 times, just so you know, right? Hamas, really bad terrorist organization. They committed vile atrocities on October 7th. They're a terrorist organization. Bad news. Very bad people.
Israel responded as any government would respond to an attack like that. Israel had the right to defend itself.
This is why I don't like Bernie Sanders right now. Again, it's profoundly grotesque to frame it this way. You're not being grilled right now by Fox News or some neocons or someone who on the other end is looking for you to first. Like, this isn't, what's his face? The guy with the uncensored show. For some reason, that British asshole is escaping me. Either way, you're not in a room where the person on the other end won't even have a dialogue with you unless you condemn Hamas right out of the gates. So, like, I understand if you were sitting across, someone who needs you, Piers Morgan, thank you. If you're sitting across from Piers Morgan, who's like, oh, do you condemn Hamas? Then you're obviously gonna have to sit there and be like, yes, I condemn Hamas or terrorist organization. But I want to say that this quote unquote conflict didn't begin on October 7th. They were an occupational force. They are on stolen land. They are invaders, and as a result of that, I think it's internationally recognized, within the framework of the United Nations to allow, and this is, allowable under international rules order as well, to allow for the right to self-defense. Now, you can certainly make an argument that no side ever has a right to take children or civilians as hostages. That is by definition a war crime. That's as far as we'll go with that one. But at the same time, nothing Nothing justifies what Israel has been doing. Israel immediately cut them off from all food, water, electricity, medical supplies. These are all war crimes. This is was already considered the world's largest open-air prison, where they were having restricted access, calorie-counted access to things like food and other supplies. They have nowhere to go. Unlike other conflicts in the world, where there is, the ravages of war, they can't immigrate or try to escape to other places. If they try to leave, they're killed. If they go to the safety zones, they're killed. This is a population of civilians, half children, who are densely packed and concentrated into, right now, the most violent area of the world. Without any calories, starving, they're being displaced and moved from location to location to location to location. Like the scale and scope of the horrors and atrocities at this point are so blatant that it is of the utmost duty, if you have a platform, if you are going on TV shows, if you're speaking on this issue, to get people to recognize it for what it is, a genocide. Failure to do so, to continue to go along the pro-Israel platform stance of Israel has a right to defend itself, the crimes and atrocities of October 7th had to be met, Israel has responded, this is a war, and unfortunately wars are ugly, all that kind of stuff.
But what has happened since then is, rather than just go after Hamas, a terrorist organization, what Israel, under an extreme right-wing government led by Benjamin Netanyahu, who has in his cabinet people to the right of him who are out and out anti-Palestinian racist. No ifs, buts about. These are racist. So this is the cabinet. What they have done is say, hey, we're not just going to go after Hamas. We're going to go after the Palestinian people. Mm-hmm. And the carnage has been horrific. And we are looking at the worst humanitarian disaster, one of the worst in modern history. And I've been on the floor talking about this a whole lot. So it's not just...
David Borkshaper, thank you so much for becoming a member of the Serf Times.
Not just. 30,000, they got a population there in Gaza, 2.2 million, 30,000 dead. Mostly women, children, and the elderly. Over 80,000 injured, mostly women, children, and the elderly.
Yes.
You got 1.8 million people, 3/4 of the population displaced. You got it.
And that's why, I know a lot of people have been like, well, what's Bernie supposed to do at the end of the day? He's working within the Biden administration. He's trying to do his best in order to bring attention to some of these issues. There's no way to speak about this without also condemning the United States and their complicity. It's all been made possible thanks to the never-ending supply of weaponry that the United States is shipping over to Israel while they're committing a genocide. It's like you could run a campaign where you avoid speaking about Joe Biden and then just use that time to be able to bring attention to the conflict, right? You could try, because I know it's politics, it's optics. You have to be careful about what you say and where you say it. Fine, there's ways to do that. There's ways to say, hey, by the way, yes, I'm going to take this time that I've been granted, free time to go on to a TV show, a news interview, anything like that. Millions of dollars worth of free advertising right now where I can bring attention to something. And I'm going to be asked the question, why should we be supporting Joe Biden? And you can answer that by saying, I think that Donald Trump is an existential threat to America. He's tried to steal an election. He is fascistic. He's already said that he's going to become a dictator on day one. He's been granted all of these new powers to do what he wants, even though you could argue that the president has had somewhat of a kind of executive authority to assassinate American citizens, like Barack Obama did with a drone strike on an American citizen in his own tenure and wasn't held accountable for that. There is still that, but you could say that and then be like, and at the same time, we need to do everything within our power to stop the United States and their shipments of weapons to Israel. We need to cut off all funding of Israel while they're currently engaged in crimes against humanity, right?
Taken out of your home.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you moved again, and then you moved again. And it's a young population, a lot of children, okay? You got 65% of the housing damaged or destroyed. Got that?
Right.
So we don't know where these people are going to go back to. There are 12 universities in Gaza. Guess what? Every single one of them has been bombed. They had a fairly decent healthcare system, systematically destroyed. Very few functioning hospitals right now. You got no electricity in Gaza right now. And then as a result of Israel's efforts to deny humanitarian aid, to block humanitarian aid, you're now looking at the possibility of mass starvation, and children right now are malnourished. And when you're a child malnourished, that's permanent. I mean, you may not necessarily die. It'll impact your intellectual development and emotional development. So you got a horror show. Now, what bothers me, I would hope that that bothers anybody.
Of course.
But what is even worse is a lot of this is being done with U.S. taxpayer dollars. So what I have insisted on from day one, and one of the few, is to say, you know what? Not another nickel to Netanyahu's extremist government to continue the war against the Palestinian people.
Our new position must be simple and straightforward. Not another nickel for the Netanyahu government if their present policies continue.
As we speak,
Yeah.
there's more military aid going to Netanyahu, and I'm going to do my best to block it. Do I think we'll win? No. But there is a provision that you have to block that kind of military aid, and I will do my best to block it.
As I read and internalize the news, they're giving me these updates on the negotiations, and it feels almost like the iTunes user agreement, where it's, we all want a ceasefire, but ceasefire if, ceasefire but. Help me understand that.
Well,
Is
I
it a
can.
conditional or an
I mean,
unconditional?
look, you're asking a very fair question.
Okay.
And it's just not, I have not been involved day-to-day
Okay.
ceasefires. So it's a good question. Don't know the answer. All that I do know.
Can you help me frame?
Elise's position is right. Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's good to have politicians at some level of government or in some position of power in the United States demanding that the U.S. cuts funding to Israel. But I also don't like that it's specifically Benjamin Netanyahu, right? It's like that's the same thing kind of like that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi were doing in the way they're phrasing this. It's in like, well, there's now a far-right extremist government in Israel. So at this time, it's probably not in our best interest to continue to support them while they're engaged in so many like vile war crimes that the entire world is witnessing. So it's kind of like trying to put this and the onus of it on the Benjamin Netanyahu cabinet and the Knesset rather than what is the reality. Whereas like this war or, genocide, occupation didn't start on October 7th. And the years and years and years of U.S. funding of a lot of these programs have been directly responsible for the pain, suffering, and deaths of Palestinians.
This?
Well, sure. I mean, look,
Blinken
if you're Hamas, right? What do you want? If you want a ceasefire, which I suspect they may want it, you want to protect your interests as best you can.
See, like right there, like this is the parts that are kind of dangerous because it's like, yes, you should be just telling the truth. You don't have to lie about this. You can just straight up be like, there has been numerous negotiations for a ceasefire, of which Hamas has agreed multiple times to the conditions for a ceasefire, and Israel has rejected them. Israel's proposal for ceasefire hasn't actually included an actual cessation of arms, as in they are not going to cease firing. So in that case, Hamas cannot accept those terms. This is not an actual ceasefire. And the reality is that Israel is wanting to prolong this for as long as possible. Their end goal, of which they have stated quite clearly, is not simply to continue this combat until Hamas is defeated and destroyed. It's the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Ideally, they won't have to kill them all, but it would be great if Egypt could take some in. Maybe the U.S., you could take some in. Canada, you could take some in as well.
If you're Israel, you want to minimize or diminish Hamas to the degree you can. So I suspect within that framework, that's what these discussions are about.
Do you feel the U.S. has a role as a neutral broker between these two sides?
U.S. is not a neutral broker. U.S. is significantly supporting the Netanyahu government.
Okay.
Not neutral, but I think, and what we focus rightfully so.
That's good. It's good to put it
on Gaza. But I hope everybody understands there's another part. There's the West Bank, where you're seeing unprecedented vigilantism against Palestinian landowners and homeowners as well. So look, the role that the United States can play is Israel has been dependent on U.S. financial support and military support for a long time. And what we have got to say to them, if you want another nickel, sorry, this is the way it's going to be. At the very least, there's going to be a Palestinian state. Palestinian people need their own political and economic entity. And
by the way, this is not me, the left cannibalizing itself by criticizing, Bernie Sanders of all people and his specific takes, when I'm sure a lot of people observing this, liberals and conservatives included, would be like, oh yeah, once again, someone who agrees with you like 80 to 90% on the issues isn't good enough because you and your virtue signaling purity left have to make sure that everything. It's like, no, if Bernie Sanders was running as a politician in Canada, I would vote for him. I think he has a long career, and it's not very often for politicians to have consistent careers advocating for the right side of history on a handful of issues. More issues than I'd care to imagine compared to other politicians who I might agree with on one or two things, but also despise them for a handful of other reasons, right? You could call it wish casting, or you could call it basically we need to do better. Everyone does. Everyone from, pundits to activists to people doing direct action to people canvassing to the politicians and the political class, people who are criticizing AOC for just nonstop support of Joe Biden while Joe Biden is basically facilitating a genocide. They're right to criticize them for that. They're not like, on the one end, wanting better from your politicians is good, natural, and should be encouraged, honestly. And trying to get people to basically select their language properly and crucially at a time like now when everything should be done in order to try and get this to stop is critical. That doesn't mean on the other end that and then it's because of this, because he was 80% of the way there. For me, I now condemn Bernie Sanders in perpetuity and will never ever support him in any way, shape, or form. Again, when you're voting, it comes down to essentially, if you're a leftist, in my opinion, you don't have representation. I don't have representation. I don't have, I should say, a viable political candidate in representation. You can tell me that there's the Jill Steins or the Communist Party of Canada or things like that. They're never going to be elected into power. So like the closest I can hope for sometimes is like, say, the NDP in Canada. For you in America, it might be a progressive candidate. But make no mistake, the people who do go out and vote are old people who watch Fox News all day. Old people all day who think that immigrants are coming to take them. Your boss, job owners, people who own companies, people with capital, those are people who are using their limited small power under democracy to try and ensure that they get to keep as much of their resources as possible. People who are pro-Palestinian and are for Palestinian liberation have huge obstacles in politics. Look what happened to Jamal Bowman. Look what happened to Cori Bush. Look what happened to openly proud advocates for Palestinian liberation and how much money is put in opposition to them. And when it comes to Jamal Bowman, that was an abysmal turnout. Like, I think it was under 20% of the people in that district actually came out to vote, and he ended up losing, and that's a big tragedy. But it's one of the problems that happens when everyone just gives in to, well, at the end of the day, there's absolutely no point to this. Everyone's pro-genocide. The Democrats are a genocidal party. The Republicans are a genocidal party. No one's going to take away the reality of the situation that the U.S. is facilitating genocide. But if you're an American living within America, yeah, you have to be consistently looking at this as, again, a character selection screen for your enemy. If you happen to be a leftist, maybe you feel that you're completely represented if you're a liberal by the Democratic Party as it is, or you're completely represented as a conservative by MAGA as it is, even though there's lots of disillusionment in both those groups towards their parties too. Concentrate locally as well. That is so crucial. Local elections in your local area have sometimes it's like 10% of the population turns out for your local mayoral elections, and those are the people who are going to be determining police budgets. Like, it's going to directly impact your lives. No one shows up to it. No one comes out to it. It's not even that there's like voter apathy. It's that people just don't give a fuck. It's like, I don't know who's running for the school board. I have no idea who these people are. I don't really care. I hope the schools run well, I guess, right? That's an area where I think the left needs to get way more organized and way more involved. If the sexy federal elections of the US that dominate global news, because as Canadians, people in Europe, everywhere around the world watches American politics because America is the empire of the world. If that is disillusioning you and you're just like, hey, I'm completely I hate both parties, I hate both candidates, I hate every aspect of it. I would say no one is asking you to take time out of your day to knock on doors and to canvass and stuff like that. Do that for a local election. Concentrate your power there, concentrate your time there, concentrate your resources there, get involved, find a lefty candidate within your local electorate, and then you do the work, volunteer, canvass. It's actually it's a joyous thing to do. I've done it in local elections before, phone canvassing, door canvassing. You get to meet a lot of people in your community. You can do it from the comfort of your home if you're not someone who wants to actually leave and go out and do all that kind of stuff. But that's where you can actually win a lot easier as well.
We are not going to be providing you any more weapons so long as you are going to war against the Palestinian people.
You're obviously in the Senate. Let's talk about the House. Back in April, there was a bill to approve billions in military aid for Israel that went through Congress. Out of the roughly 200 House Democrats, only 37 voted against military aid. So just so folks understand kind of the way the voting works, over 80% of House Democrats
and
were
virtually
good.
all Republicans, I would imagine.
Correct?
Yeah.
We're good on sending
Yeah.
aid. Okay. Yesterday, I was at the United Center. You say the word ceasefire, incredible applause break. So what I'm hearing at the convention is from the Democratic Party is yay ceasefire, and simultaneously from 80% of those members of Congress, I'm also hearing yay weapons.
The convention is, thousands of people. It's a small number of people.
Right.
If you do polling today, I think if you ask a simple question and you say, do you think your taxpayer, American taxpayer dollars, should go to support the Netanyahu government and the continuation of the war? I suspect a pretty strong majority of Americans would say, no, I don't. And among Democrats, the numbers would be very high. So if your question is Congress, I think your question is, reflecting where the American people are at?
Correct.
The answer is no, they're not.
Why is that?
Well, it is the same answer that I would give you if you asked me, gee, how come every other major country on earth has healthcare as a human right and we don't? And polls show that the majority of the American people want healthcare as a human right. How come we don't tax billionaires at a higher rate when the American people think we should? And the answer to all of those questions is the same. And I tried to talk about that a little bit last night. It is the role of money in politics. So right now, both major political parties, Democrats and Republicans, are funded very heavily by the wealthiest people in this country. And if you were a billionaire and you wanted to start a super PAC, you could put hundreds of millions of dollars into campaigns to defeat people who opposed you and to support your friends who will support your agenda.
2 out of those 37 House members that voted against the weapons bill were Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush.
That's right.
They recently lost their primaries. Why did they lose their primaries?
Well, that's good. And they lost their primaries because a super PAC, AIPAC, put an unprecedented amount of money. I was involved in both of their campaigns. Jamal's more than Cori's, but we helped Cori raise money. And the reason is the billionaire class does not want strong opposition to the billionaire agenda. And in Jamal, you had somebody who was strongly opposed to it. And it's not just on Israel, where his views were not probably dissimilar to mine or Cori's, but on other issues as well. So what you got, and let me repeat this because it's not talked about enough. Yeah, do we have a democracy? Yes, you can go out and vote. That's great. And please, everybody, go out and vote. But what most of you cannot do is put hundreds of millions of dollars into a super PAC to elect candidates you want or defeat candidates you don't like. So there's a super PAC out there. They went after Jamal in an unprecedented way, defeated him. Went after Cori, defeated her. And that is the power of money in politics. And that is why it is absolutely imperative
It's kind of unusual he's not naming AIPAC by name.
that we get rid of this disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United and move to public funding of elections.
Right.
This is just money. Look, it is not complicated. If you are, this gentleman over here, probably not, you're a billionaire, and you didn't like Bernie Sanders, or you don't like Cori Bush, you don't like Jamal Bowman, you can start a super PAC, Friends of America, call it whatever you want. You could take out a check, put $500 million into that check, get a few of your friends to contribute, and you go after them, put ads on TV. That's legal. That's what Citizens United allows us to do. Nothing conspiratorial about it.
He did say AIPAC? I heard AIPAC. Maybe.
That is the reality of American politics. That's going on in both political parties. Check out the amount of money that billionaires are now contributing both to the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And that will answer your question, I think, not only about the war in Gaza, it's why we don't have health care.
You said AIPAC, all right, I stand corrected.
Why we have massive income and wealth inequality, why we have a corrupt tax
I'm spreading fake news.
system, why we are not able to send our kids to college and make it affordable, et cetera, et cetera. It's money. Money talks.
I want to talk about your career in politics. You have been propping open the Overton window for the past 40 years. And 8 years ago, a bunch of my friends were just hunched over a laptop on Reddit, vaping on their phones, just going, you know what? This guy makes a lot of sense. Does it ever get exhausting seeing how slow it takes.
That is the one thing that I'm always gonna have to give Bernie credit for. Like, I know a lot of people don't like when he goes on shows like Joe Rogan or stuff like that, but like, it's in those conversations that a monstrously huge amount of normies suddenly realize that this stuff isn't scary, that they've been lied to their entire lives, right? Like the very concept of like, oh my god, a social democrat is sitting across the table from me, a socialist, right? What exactly are you trying to do? Destroy America? You hate America, right? And it's like, so a lot of the concepts that you think are communism or socialism, or you've been taught that you think are communism or socialism, and that they're very, very scary, you've been lied to. If you phrase it in such a way, hey, do you think that bosses should be able to exploit their workers and treat them horribly? No, I don't. Do you think that a company would probably run better if the employees had, say, stake in the game, if they were, say, co-owners of the company, that they themselves were working towards something in which they could themselves see a future in, that they were actually part of the business? And then, yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, so you're saying that they should own the means of production, is what you're saying. And I know when I say that, now all of a sudden, ooh, it's scary. You got really scary out of nowhere.
For the electorate to eventually catch up to ideas that feel so basic.
They feel basic, but there's an idea that I think people don't comprehend, is that the people on top have enormous power. Just think, I'm a little bit older than you.
It's because he's from The Daily Show. I keep waiting for the punchline. He had his own show post Daily Show, The Patriot Act, which was one of the best of all the late night shows. I'm really, really depressed and sad that it got canceled on Netflix. There's the theory in part that it may have something to do with one of his episodes getting pulled from Saudi Arabia. But like, or no, it was the Indian election one that he got into a lot of controversy for, wasn't it? Either way, it was really good. There's like, him and John Oliver might be the only two, like, you know, sock dem, I guess, libs who consistently bring attention to a lot of issues that other people don't, or just are too scared to talk about. Everything from the danger of police unions, qualified immunity. Usually when they're talking about American topics, they're really on point.
So when I was a kid, people of your color, I couldn't drink at a water fountain in Mississippi. Okay? Go to segregated schools, etc. It took God knows how long for people to stand up and fight against segregation and racism. It took a very long time. People died in the struggle, okay? And sheriffs going out there and they shot people and they lynched people. You know, there's a movie on Emmett Till and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's photos of you marching in the Civil Rights Movement. Yeah.
My point is, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but in the real world, when you take on people with power, they don't fold up and they don't say, you know, Hasan, you made a good point. Hey, we're going to provide health care to all people. Geez, why didn't I think of that? I'm a smart guy. Doesn't work like that. These people have power and they have money and they're extremely greedy.
You're telling me a witty, top pinned comment can't take down the billionaire class?
Well, it
What are you
takes,
doing?
yeah, but it takes, you have to think that one through. Taking down the billionaire class ain't easy. They own the media, all right? You know, they have enormous power in both political parties. They are very, very powerful people. So that you don't win and change the world overnight, well, I'm sorry, that's the bad news. It doesn't happen. It didn't happen.
Chat saves the world. It's true, Mozart. Everyone who is in both chats, the Twitch chat and the YouTube chat, you are technically doing the revolution right now, just by chatting.
In the civil rights movement, you know, women, I mean, I can remember, wasn't so many years ago, this is true. I mean, this is how quickly your generation may not know this. But not so many, a few decades ago, in the United States Senate, 100 people, there were 2 women, 98 men, 2 women. The idea of someone like Kamala Harris running for president, a woman, a black woman, people literally would have said to you, you are absolutely crazy. That ain't never gonna happen in 100 years,
Right.
all right? My point is, change happens. We have got to make that change happen faster. But anyone who thinks it happens overnight, it doesn't. You have friends, I suspect, who are gay, right? 30, 40 years ago, people didn't talk about being gay. Now you have a Secretary of Transportation who is gay. You've got governors who are gay.
Right.
All right, that didn't happen by accident. People fought and struggled.
Senator Sanders, unfortunately, this position has been framed in, I believe at times you've been framed in the media as this kind of radical person.
Good point.
But I want to talk about your Guardian article, Because what you did is you conducted your own research and you showed that these progressive policies are actually super popular, 10 toes on the ground. This is not a Twitter position. This is not an Instagram stories position. Real IRL Americans care about these issues. How much of a gap do you think is there between your platform in 2020, these issues that we talk about that we feel are common sense, and the Harris-Waltz platform of 2024?
Well, they don't have a platform yet.
He's spot on. Lefties are too impatient. It's a long game that wins. Yeah. Well, also, I think it's important that some of the parts that he was mentioning there need to be reiterated sometimes to people who feel that, like, just through the process of basic human decency, that people are going to recognize the faults in concepts like homophobia or racism, and that it's only going to be, you know, through a bill that gets passed that those things are finally over. Where it's like a lot of those movements and like a lot of the freedoms that LGBTQ plus people experience today are in large part due to the pain, suffering, and deaths of LGBTQ plus activists throughout generations who've been fighting and dying for those rights, which is why it can be so grotesque sometimes to see things like pink washing, or to see corporations and brands try and take the rainbow flag and reappropriate it, or try and make Juneteenth ice cream, shit like that. Like those are commercial products that are trying to commodify and profit off civil rights movements, essentially. And like, they're not doing it because corporations are noble and want to be a part of the civil rights movement. They're doing it because at that moment in time, it's safe for them and it's brand safe for them and it helps their bottom line. As soon as it's not safe, you'll see them just like cast those same civil rights movements astray immediately when it gets scary.
They're working on it. You know, in fairness, and it's an important point to make, she has been a candidate now for all of
So what you're saying is force the vote wouldn't have saved democracy. I still can't believe there's people who are still doing the force the vote shit in 2024. You know what? We know what force the vote would do because fucking Matt Gaetz did it. We saw what it did. It was very funny and chaotic, and now everyone hates Matt Gaetz and he's achieved nothing. So you have your case in point there, right?
a month.
Right.
Can you imagine what fell on her shoulders? I mean, having to organize the campaign. She got a lot of folks from Biden's campaign, but, you know, to organize that.
Clean up your room.
To plan out the rallies.
Smoking
that you have
on
to do, to
fentanyl.
plan out the convention.
First off, thank you for your prime, but lay off the fentanyl. That'll kill you.
That is now taken back. To select a vice presidential candidate, to work on policy stuff. I mean, that is a lot to do in a month. And I think she's been doing a very good job. What I will say, and I want to pick up on the point you made and amplify it.
About the Guardian article.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. What we did.
Please do, because I ran out of free articles, so I didn't get to read all of it and stuff.
What we did is we said, look, I'm called a far left guy, right? Trump has decided that Kamala Harris is a communist. I mean, totally insane. So we asked the American people a lot of simple questions about some of the major issues facing this country, Republicans, Democrats, Independents. So we said, do you think that the wealthy and large corporations should pay more in taxes? Shock of all shocks, over 70% of the American people said yes, including a majority of Republicans. Should we be surprised? No.
No.
All right.
Yeah, of course.
Question, should we raise Social Security benefits by lifting the cap on taxable income and extend life by 75 years? In other words, asking the wealthy to contribute more into Social Security. Over 70% of the people said yes. Should we raise the minimum wage to a living wage? American people overwhelmingly said yes. Should we expand Medicare? Right now, Medicare is a good program. It doesn't cover dental, hearing, and vision. Should we expand it? Over 70%. In all these instances, a majority of Republicans. So your question, I think, is if the American people feel that way, why, A, haven't we done it? Why aren't people?
Yeah, why haven't they been implemented?
And the answer,
The
the answer gets back to what I said a moment ago. It's money. The insurance companies don't like the idea. The rich don't like the idea of paying more in taxes. The insurance companies don't like the idea of
Mark's
expanding
predicted all
Medicare.
this, by the way.
Is there a realistic path for my generation to remove money from politics? Is this something?
Goddamn right there is.
You think so?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I mean, what
38.
you got to do.
It was one of his primary critiques of liberalism, especially because, like, you know, after you see things like, say, the French Revolution and then the beginning of the idea of having, you know, democracy rather than monarchies and every citizen gets a vote and all that kind of stuff, it's going to be still polluted under capitalism. There's still going to be a problem inherent within the system, is that there's going to be a ruling class, there's going to be those with capital, and they're going to be able to influence politics, and so it's going to become undemocratic in that process.
Hopefully I have a long way to go.
All right. The answer is, of course, there is. This money has always played a role in politics, but it was greatly accentuated by this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. So we need legislation to get rid of Citizens United and to move to public funding of elections. If you do that, there will no more be super PACs. Billionaires will not be able to play the role they're playing right now. And again, not a radical idea. Mm-hmm. This exists in many other countries around.
We should be ashamed that we didn't elect Bernie to the White House. He's a national treasure and a hero. The thing is, though, like, even if Bernie had been elected, by the way, that wouldn't have been the end, right? Like, even if Bernie Sanders was elected, it's not like all of a sudden overnight suddenly the United States would become a social democracy. It is a democracy after all, so there are a whole bunch of different elected constituents both in the Senate and the House, and you know, there's going to be people who oppose anything you try to do, especially if it's going to threaten capital. And it's the thing is that, like, electoral politics cannot in and of itself be the only venue that people use to try and change the world, right? It's one of many things in a tool set. It's why I say, like, don't put all your hope into politicians. They're most likely at some point or another going to disappoint you. It's why the whole cult of personality around politicians as well gets a little bit dangerous. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, you're usually selecting your enemy. I've yet to really have a politician come around, especially at the federal level in Canada, that like is inspiring to me to the point where I'm like, oh my God, this person is going to transform the world, and then we're all going to finally live in a better future, kind of thing.
In the world.
And yes, posting is praxis, chatting is praxis. It's the new form.
I hope we do change it, and I hope we do
Yeah, Bernie would have been fighting both Democrats and Republicans. It's true.
Remove money from politics, because we still don't have Medicare for all. Minimum wage is still at $7.15, which is crazy. When I worked at Safeway in 2003 in Davis, California, I think I was $7.25, and we are still paying other countries to bomb civilians. I want to ask you about your legacy and what you represent in American politics. Do you ever feel like you failed because these things haven't happened? No. Or do you feel like a success because these things are...
Jerem, you put it really well. I think people need to play the long game, but we shouldn't be at the expense of human rights or equality. No, and that's the reason why most people who are, you know, trying to advocate, I think, in the U.S. election for, hey, by the way, Donald Trump does pose an existential threat. The idea being that, like, if Donald Trump comes to power, actually wants to become a dictator and starts utilizing his, you know, newfound godlike king powers and unlocks it as a presidency, as an outsider of the United States, I don't want to see the U.S. fall to fascism. I think that would be very, very frightening. They have the most powerful army in human history. And also, when it comes to climate change, would also be disastrous. Not that Joe Biden is actually doing anything to effectively stop climate change, but their policies could not be more, like, contrasting in those two candidacies when you look at what Donald Trump is doing, and everything from trying to deregulate and abolish the EPA across the board to just, like, drill, baby, drill. We got to keep on pumping. All this needs to be stopped, right? Ultimately, it's one of the scariest things about the fact that the United States, I think it's the second largest carbon emitter in the world after China, it's I think one of the highest for carbon emissions per capita. That needs to be addressed immediately. Like, this is one of those things where, yes, climate change is probably one of the biggest global existential threats that society faces right now.
Now part of the regular conversation.
Well, you know,
but you can also do that and in you know, complete honesty acknowledge that the United States is an imperial empire that is funding and providing weapons for genocidal regimes when it's not doing its own forms of you know, mass murder of civilian populations. So it's providing the funding for other countries to do that. That has to be stopped. There's a complete truth to that, and it's not like that's going to be stopped under Kamala Harris either. So the idea of trying to advocate for a politician or a political party and change the narrative, like, he's brought up how Bernie Sanders has effectively really shifted the Overton window, and to his credit, he certainly has. I know entire generations of people might not think concepts of, say, even social democracy would be nearly as popular as they are now without someone like Bernie Sanders, who is bringing it to the forefront and using very clear and concise language to make it less scary on a regular basis. That has to continue with other people who are willing to you know, and be supported by the way, when you find someone who's willing to do this, to go onto media and circuits and television and use their platform to effectively communicate that the U.S. also needs to stop being a global disruptor, a mass murdering weapons arms manufacturer. That needs to stop. That's not something that even like, you know, leftist or progressive candidates or whatever you want to call them is usually not at the forefront, because that's not something that the everyday average American thinks about. What the topics that come down to when it's like politicians or the political class and the normies at home, it's like the economy, you know, jobs, how they're going to provide for their family, healthcare, things like that. There's ways to weave that into the conversation, right? So when it comes to the economy, obviously it can be disastrous for Americans specifically to continuously have to use large portions of their taxation to be put towards weapons manufacturing, to be put towards a global empire, a military empire that has hundreds and hundreds of bases globally, a massive climate change polluter as well. At that needs to be normalized. That, like, because like the everyday average American, they're not thinking about toning down the army. Right? If you're like, hey, it's kind of wild, y'all spend $1 trillion nearly on your military. Does that concern you? It's like, nah, USA, America first, America number one, baby. Yeah.
You're familiar with people like Pramila Jayapal and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Maxwell Frost and many others. Look, what is, again, an untold story in the Congress right now, and I just saw Pramila this morning, actually, is there are almost 100 members of the Progressive Caucus, and a significant number of them are young, often women, people of color. That's a revolution. Never, ever, ever have you had more progressives who are fighting to transform this country in profound ways. Never before have there been that many in the House of Representatives. That isn't true in the Senate. We don't have that in the Senate. But in the House, that exists. And I'm proud that my two campaigns have gotten a lot of people to say, you know what, I think I can run. What Bernie is saying makes sense to me. That's an agenda that I think I'm going to run for office. Not only for
And how powerful is that?
Oh my goodness.
How much can Congress change the fate of the country and the way money is moved through the country?
They can pass legislation which gets money out of politics. That's what I'm saying. You can pass legislation. Super PACs are not biblical, you know, they're not inherent. You can get rid of them tomorrow if you had the legislation to do it, and that's what we've got to do.
I have so many friends that were Bernie or bust. And when you didn't win in 2016 or 2020, they bust. They checked out of politics, and then they hard pivoted into Bitcoins.
Wow, really?
Then they pivoted into ketamine and Zen. Let's see where that goes. But they are despondent. Jokes aside, they're despondent, Senator Sanders. Where does that lead?
I like how you just say jokes aside, because it was not registering as jokes to Bernie at all. He's just like, Is that what I am to you? Am I a joke?
Your supporters that saw so much hope in the values you were espousing, and what do you say to my friends who now feel like you may be falling in line a little bit too much with the corporate Democratic establishment?
Well, look, at this particular moment in history, and perhaps in any moment in history, despair is not an option. To say, well, I supported Bernie, he didn't win, I'm going into Bitcoin. Sorry, not good enough. All right.
That's going to be your most controversial statement of this whole
All right. There is a reality out there. And the reality is that Donald Trump is not only an authoritarian person, he is a xenophobe. He tries to divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born. You're familiar with the Muslim ban, to say the least, and so forth and so on. So I think, not to mention a dozen other issues. So I think if you are a human being who wants to live in a sane and decent society, who is concerned about your kids, you know what? Sorry, you don't have a right to check out. That's a privilege you don't have. You're gonna have to do what people historically have done. You know, I just came from a meeting an hour ago with the trade unionists. There was a time in this city where union people, I'm talking 100 years ago, were beaten up because they wanted to join a union. They were denied food, they were thrown out when they went out on strike. And they stood up and they fought so that people can earn a decent standard of living. You know, women didn't have the right to vote. They didn't have property rights. They stood up and they fought back. So then now we have today a woman who rests on the shoulders of those women who struggled for 100 years. You have a civil rights movement. Dr. Martin Luther King was here in the city, fighting for justice. Got shot trying to organize work with workers. So people say, oh my goodness, my candidate didn't win, I'm dropping out, even though the candidate was made. Sorry, I lost, I was there, I'm not dropping out. You got to look at the world as it is and do the best you can. And people can disagree, Hasan, what is the best? How do we go forward? But dropping out is certainly not one of the options.
So I'm 38. A lot of our viewers are around my age. You're 83. We have a long way to go to become your age and to have your wisdom. How should we apply the next decades of our life?
Things.
We're first generation. A lot of us are first generation kids.
Well, I'm first generation, not a kid. Also, first generation old.
I'm a man. I'm a man now.
So my father came from Poland. I think immediately we got to elect Kamala Harris. But second of all, we have got to keep our eyes on an agenda that speaks to the needs of working people. And by the way, not only is it not a radical agenda, we just discussed how American people support, this exists all over the world.
Right.
I live 50 miles away from Canada.
Hi.
You go in a hospital in Canada for 3 weeks. You know what the bill is when you come out? Do you know? Zero. It's zero.
I can attest to this. It's 100% true. I think it was almost a year ago in September where my appendix tried to take me down. I know, it was evil, twisted, sick, and tried to kill me. And I went to a doctor on a Saturday. I went to a walk-in clinic on a Saturday, paid nothing out of pocket, saw a doctor within like 15 minutes of going to that walk-in clinic. The doctor sat down, prodded my stomach, and then when he did the poke on like that one area and let go, it's that reflex when they let go if there's pain, that's bad. And he was like, oh shit, you should go to an ER. Yeah, you might have appendicitis. And then went into an ER. I was in a hospital for 2.5 days. I slept there, was fed there. I got so many different tests and scans, got blood work, got scans, got that giant thing with the magnets and all that spins around you, all that. And then I got surgery all within like a 48-hour period. They saved my life. They were incredible. And afterwards, when I left, there was no bill. I paid $0. I've talked to Americans about that experience, and they're like, you poof, probably 50 grand, maybe 75 you need to be looking at. And it's not something that I would have been able to like. The choices were, I do that or I die. So I either go to the hospital, get that surgery, get that appendix that's about to burst out of me, or I die. Those were the two choices. So someone's like, yeah, you do that, Lance, but you'll be in debt forever. Do you have $75,000? I don't. Okay, well, enjoy medical debt then, right? It's so profoundly fucked up to think that, like, if I just travel a little bit, I cross this imaginary line, and then all of a sudden Canada turns into the United States of America. All of a sudden, if I don't have good health insurance from my employer or in general, if I'm under the age that qualifies for Medicaid in the US, which is 65, it's bankrupt or die. Bankrupt or die. And again, profoundly fucked up. And people always say, like, why do you advocate for Americans to get healthcare? You're not even American. Because I want them to be healthy. In general, just human beings, I think, globally should have access to healthcare. That's kind of a profound belief. Again, extrapolations of basic human decency. It's called communism. No, it's just, again, I think they should have healthcare because the healthier they are, the better and less angry they will be. The more mental health care that is provided will also help people who are perhaps very, very angry and looking for excuses to want to direct that anger. I think the more free time people have because they're not working horrifying jobs they hate, or they're not working multiple app jobs just to make ends meet, the more time, the more worker power that is established from the ground on up means that people have more time to not only enjoy life, which is kind of the point of it all, I assume, enjoy your family, touch grass, have an orgasm, eat a sandwich, enjoy pho for the first time. If you haven't tried it before, you really should. It's delicious. But also it gives you more time in order to do other stuff. If you want to be active, if you want to volunteer, if you want to do direct action, if you want to join a community, if you want to work for an organization, all of that is not really possible when you can't afford to eat. Right? If you don't have time to be able to even like take care of yourself, there isn't any time to say, hey, by the way, those 2 days where you don't have to work at the job you hate? Yeah, you're gonna have to spend those 2 days now doing other kinds of work to try and maintain basic human rights. You know, it turns out like half the population is now threatened to have their reproductive freedom taken away from them. So get out there on your free time and go make a change.
It's publicly funded.
Nominal, yeah.
It's a human right. And by the way, they spend 50% of what we spend per capita on healthcare. All right. You go to Finland and countries, you know what childcare costs or college education? Virtually free. Because they understand they want a well-educated country. They want the kids to do well. These are not radical ideas. They really are common sense ideas supported by the majority of the American people. So what I'm asking your viewers and your listeners to do is to stay focused on the issue. Don't let politicians get off the hook saying, oh, well, yeah, I want to improve healthcare. Well, what do you mean? Can I go to any doctor that I want without taking out my wallet? Well, I'm not talking about that. What do you mean by that? Should we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs? Or should we pay what other countries are paying? So be thinking about what you want as the future of this country and demand the politicians deliver it.
Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much.
Your team.
Yay, Finland, except currently we've been starting to save on mental health resources, so that's great amongst education and healthcare. Finland is not so Finland anymore. I heard Finland, Political Poppy was telling us apparently has a right-wing government right now that are actually doing some pretty baddie stuff that kind of sucks. Because I'm always just like, well, you know, there's always Finland. They have things together.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/The Serfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Voltimondi, Omni, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincel, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.